Hello.
Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the
275 pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
Yeah.
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping it, pissing all over everything.
Is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's right. I know.
What'd you say his name?
Hervé Villagers.
You know what Pertnear means.
If you know what Pertnear means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pertnear Outdoors.
It's that time of year. It's that time of year where we all need to be thinking about, do we have everything we need to hit the woods? Chances are you don't, and if you think you do, you probably could use some more. So how about you go over to thehuntworks.com and check out all the incredible products these guys are carrying. This is a great family, local store. Dan and Steve Dunnigan, a couple hardworking sumbitches. They are now carrying archery equipment, everything from bows to arrows to broadheads, quivers, you name it. So on top of all the great tree stands and box blinds that they're carrying, they're now a full-on archery dealer, and really recommend that you check these guys out for your next big purchase. Head over to thehuntworks.com to see what they've got for sale, or if you're local in the Rochester area, head on over to their store in East Rochester on Dispatch Drive and check them out. They are on social media, The Huntworks, and also online, like I said. And if you purchase anything online, you can use promo code FEEDIN'Em to get 5% off, and that's FEED, FEEDIN, INUM, 5% off. Feed 'em.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 213, no, 214 now, Bill, or is it 214A?
It's 213C, I think.
So you're out on the road making a living. I'm sitting in my basement, twiddling my thumbs.
Trying to sell paper buses.
Yeah. So paper buses, they don't really exist, huh?
No, they just, on paper, people say, yeah, I plan to buy this thing, and then they just hope and pray it ever gets built.
Yeah, whether or not it'll ever yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we wanted to just get an episode out, let people know some of the interesting things that go on. We're past season, right? And it was a good season. And it was a great season, actually. Fantastic. And wrapped up our grinding day and had a super holiday hunt, and heading into show season and working on habitat. So what do you want to chat about, Slick?
Well, like we just talked about, before you hit and record, we'd like to do some episodes with the gang, separate focus conversations about, Dallas had an incredible year, Brian had a great year, Jimmy, getting individual conversations, talking about, some of the things that went into place to have the success that everybody had. But
yeah,
I don't know. I thought we start right off where we were last weekend, doing, what, like you said, the end of our hunting season every year is kind of the culmination, doing our big family grinding day. So we talked a little bit about that. And then maybe I think what's equally interesting and what most people are interested in right now this time of year is, the off-season work. So, be in the habitat and, a lot of people get pretty jazzed up about shed hunting, and we talk about a few of those. But I think the two projects, a couple of the projects that you got one in the pipeline now, and we will likely have one in the pipeline too. So it might be fun to talk about those. So.
Yeah. Well, our grind day went well. We had the interesting thing that struck me on this grinding day was this: we brought in like non-members, if you will, people that weren't really like part of our cutting group, but just with some health issues, and like our guy, Joel passed away there and he always handled wrapping. So it's like, who's going to do the vacuum packing? Well, with them, so we ended up bringing kids in, and actually the kids they're related to Chris, Uncle Chris, and but they did a great job all season long. We'd have been lost without them. We're kind of short on manpower, and then Donnie Lucas, who's been on the show here and had a great season as well. Don was kind enough to come give us a hand, and Jimmy's father-in-law, he came down, spent the day with us. He helped out. Chris Lawrence jumped in for a bit. So, yeah, I thought all in all, it went very well. I mean, we usually average like 100 pounds of production, an hour at the end of the day. When we started at 8, we were getting things kind of up and rolling by 7:30, but everybody rolling at 8, and we were wrapped up with the exception of some vacuum packing. We were wrapped up by, I think, 2:30? So,
yeah, it was. I mean, everything was cleaned up and people were leaving at 3. So.
Yeah. And we had eaten and everything.
It was good, and it struck me as well that, looking around throughout the day, like how many young people were there. It was kind of cool to see, the Chris's nieces and nephews there, and
yep.
Yeah, it was definitely a good day, and it really did go very smooth, and I did all my link grinding the night before to allow the meat to sit overnight, and kind of steep a little bit or whatever you want to call it with the seasoning and liquid in it we put in. So, that helped a little bit doing that. It was nice actually to get that ground up and through the machine early and before everybody was there. That was nice. So, yeah, I think we did some good things this year that you can reflect back on as, things that we can continue to do moving forward. It's definitely a lot, the big production to do all that in one day. But some of the meat came out great. I mean, that sausage that Sean had made.
Oh my God.
With the mango habanero, like I took some of that to the Bills game on Sunday and, fed it to a bunch of people, and they were like, I mean, that is some of the greatest flavor I've ever tasted.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Sausage, period, let alone a venison.
I'm thinking we had cheese in that too, didn't we? I think he ran out of some of his cheese, so we had some cheddar that we.
There was pepper jack, I think.
Oh, pepper jack on that one. Okay.
Cheddar.
Okay.
Pepper jack's what he put in it. I mean, he made a freaking shitload of it. I mean, he had like 60 or 70 pounds of link between that, and then the jalapeno popper was pretty good too.
Yeah, the jalapeno popper has been good that he makes, and it's kind of an odd. He does those two odd blends, but I'll tell you what, that the mango habanero was like unbelievable, and the beer. We're putting beer in with that sausage to get a little pastier, and to get the right consistency of the meat for stuffing, and I think that makes a big difference too.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to try. You had some brats that you made, some bratwurst that, as you said, we ground the night before, and then we mixed all the seasonings in and let it set to kind of seep in the flavor. How was it? Did you get any? Did we cook any?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. A little bit of a unique flavor to it. We put eggs and milk in with it when we mixed it per the recipe, so that was a little different.
Yeah.
But I made just a couple pieces that morning, mid-morning, and they got eaten up pretty quick. But then I had a link of it that I never froze, and I was planning to cook it over the weekend, and then we ended up not getting to it, so I just cooked it up this morning, and of course I freaking left it on the grill too long and burned it. So it tastes fine. I'll eat it, whatever. I'm not gonna complain, but I know that if the wife and kids would have been like, it's freaking burned and dry, whatever. So I just eat it and not complain about it, but it's good. It's different. It's good.
Yeah, we made like 690 pounds. Well, actually, I think because some people put in extra pork that we hadn't planned on. I had accounted for 130 pounds or 131 pounds of pork that we would need per the order sheets I put together for everybody. And so I ordered 140, and I pretty consistently, I'll go 10, 12 pounds over. And I I should have gone. We ran out. Like last year, I did the same type of thing, but we ended up having a bunch left over. But I think some of the guys were putting more in, but I had that. It's all in. I don't know where. It's not. I guess we didn't lose it. We lost less than 10%, right? And I didn't like weigh the whole order, but maybe I got a little less than 140. I don't know. But at any rate, I felt bad that we had to drop back to like 0.8 of a pound for each 5-pound batch there towards the end. But it is what I guess at the end of the day, I'd rather have that than have 12 pounds left over. And the other thing that was interesting this year, that one of the changes we did was that we went with pork trimmings instead of pork butt. Like we've used coarse ground pork butt to blend in. And, Jimmy Farrell had called me and said, hey, I just came from Log City Meats. And he goes, I got this, what they call pork trimmings. And he goes, stuff is beautiful, But he goes, it's half the cost. It's like $1.75 a pound. So long story short, I ended up calling them, and they had a bunch of it down there. So I bought 140 pounds and ran down there and got that. But I tell you what, it was like, it looked 50% meat. It was beautiful. Very nice. Very nice. So.
Yeah, it may have even been a little leaner than what we're used to on the pork blend,
Yeah, so it was. I think, that saved us a couple $100, on versus buying pork butts and down there in Dundee they sell that stuff a little cheaper, and you get it up here. And I had some venison to run down anyway, so it was it worked out good. It was a nice change, and. So I guess that was one of my takeaways too on grind day, is the amount of just seeing some of the kids around there, and it made me think of the grandkids are getting older. It won't be long. I'm looking forward to the day when we got Jay and Bill Dan in there, and maybe Kate, right? And so Dylan. So like there'll come a day when we can start getting the grandkids into this a little bit. Bill Dan already helped a little bit last year, I think it was. So.
Yeah, I mean they'll if they're available, they'll be helping.
Yep. The other interesting thing is Chris.
You start to see the thing as these kids start getting older. It's like, freaking weekends are. You start to see what you've been seeing. You see other people with older kids. It's like they're always got shit going on.
They're running constantly.
There's so much. Holy Christ. Yeah.
Well, next fall we get Joe back, so we'll have him back because he's getting out of the Navy, and he's coming back here. So that we'll be adding him back to the crew, which will be great, and David's plan. So we'll have them 2 young guys coming back in too, so that'll help out. But so it was all in all, it was a good season. I think. Counting yours, our total processing. Well, we had 30 deer, counted to the group, so that was a good year. Now, a third of them were yours, so you had an exceptionally good year.
Yep. Wait, that's counting mine?
Yeah.
30?
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess. Well, you donated a few, which was great.
I donated 2 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I told.
No, it was.
Go ahead.
And we said when you and I did that podcast during the doe hunt there, kind of what we were looking to do this season. It's been I don't know. I mean, things just, I joke about stuff and say things, but things have just really fallen into place the last few years for me, hunting wise, where it's like, I kind of I don't press too hard. I definitely get frustrated. I was, visibly frustrated there that weekend I shot my archery buck, because you get all revved up for that weekend and you go away from home, and, that's the weekend. Halloween weekend has always historically been an incredible weekend for deer activity in camp, and it was just dead for a day and a half. And I was that was probably the low point of my season there. And then once I shot that buck, that was at the 2nd of November, that Saturday afternoon, that just changed the whole season. Like, that was my first deer of the year, and then everything just started flowing, you know, like then it just, and I'm sure other people can relate to that. You kind of start to press a little bit, and we eat a lot of venison, and I like to make sure that I like to kill deer. I love doing it. That's what we're out there for. So like you hold off, you're targeting a certain deer or, specific deer. And then all of a sudden it gets to the point where it's the 1st of November and you're like, oh my God, I haven't even had a shot opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was probably the lowest point of the season. And then, then just things just started happening. And it was like, as soon as I let my guard down and just enjoyed it, like I said, I wanted to, the opportunities just continued to come. And, I think that's one thing with hunting with a lot of different people and seeing how different people approach, we do some of these group hunts and you see how it goes. And probably the biggest thing that I can take away from hunting with new people is like, people need to slow down.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's one thing that I witnessed, and I continue to witness, and Dallas and I and Brian talk about this all the time. When we do a lot of these hunts, whether they're group hunts or individual hunts, but you're out in the woods still hunting, trying to get into deer, it ends up being, it seems like the same people that consistently have the success,
Right.
And I'm really coming to terms with, I think it's the speed at which you move through the woods and how you do it that is the difference maker. And, that's something that, I mean, I've grown a lot as a hunter the last, 5 to 10 years, but, those are things that were ingrained in me as a kid, walking behind you and Uncle Mike up in the hills and still hunting. Like that's stuff that you have to want to learn it. At a young age, I think you inherently learn it, but then, when you're older and everything, you're just kind of like rushing everywhere. Like you need to want to slow down and see deer and see success. Does that make sense?
It does, and it's like that's one of the things I've noticed as well with, especially when we do large group hunts. It's like if you and Jimmy and I and Uncle Mike do a hunt, it's almost like unspoken. Everybody knows the pace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're gonna like mooch a side hill or something, but I notice like especially watching on the radios when we have our Garmin 2A radios and hunting the big woods so you can find where each other is, but guys move too fast, and it's like you said, that's a learned skill, and a lot of them might be some of the newer hunters, but just slowing down, that's a hard thing to do because you can all sit there and have a team meeting like, okay, 10 of us are gonna do a push here, and you're sitters, and it's amazing the different rate. We can say we want to go nice and slow, But nice and slow is not like, it's not definitive. It's like my nice and slow might be way different than yours, But it's that's okay though, right? Because it's hard. It's like it's not going to be perfect, right? Because we all don't hunt together all the time,
No, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to identify that, and that like that's an area that I'm seeing. It's hunting on the ground on foot is a completely different ball game.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Than sitting in a tree stand. I mean, it's worlds different, And there's guys like, I'll pick on Brad. Like Brad will tell you, he's like, put me in a spot. Tell me where to go. Put me in a spot. He goes, I don't have the success when I'm walking, and that's just where his comfort is. Like he wants to get better at that, but so I put him in a spot on the hunt. We did the holiday hunt, and sure enough, he got a deer. Like he's got it. He has the vision to see, where the good spots would be, where the pinch points are. So like everyone has their own set of skills. I'm kind of learning that, as we hunt year after year with the same group of people. Like don't put people in positions to fail.
Right.
Like, if Peter Michael Haynes can't sit still and go in the right spot ever, don't put him in a position where he's gonna not go to the right spot. Like just as an example.
Yeah, because it's going to happen.
Right. So I know where to walk. I'm always typically a walker, and I know the routes, I know where the deer are, so like put those people in those. Like, are there days that I would love to be like down on the end, in the bailout point for the deer? But yeah, of course. But I also want to see other people have success, and I know where to go, and I end up tripping into success pushing deer around anyway.
Right.
So
Yeah, you have the.
I'll be the old guy, and Billy will be drawing up hunts and telling me where to go.
Yeah. Yep, the tables will turn if you're all fortunate enough, But but yeah, it is. It's very interesting to hunt with a couple of the large group hunts that we do here towards the end of season. That's I mean, I love hunting. I love hunting with a group of guys. I not even like I wouldn't say I don't care if I get anything because everybody wants to get something, but it's just like my PA hunt this year was the best I've ever had. With respect to, I mean, the conditions were the harshest, or as harsh as anything I've seen. We had some terrible rain and cold and wind previous years, but every single day I had my crosshairs on a buck, and none of them met the minimum. So, but I mean, it's like I've never had that where like I see a buck every day, and I saw more deer than I've ever seen down there, and it probably had to do with the snow, but I also think it had to do with the way we hunted it,
Right.
So it was a great experience, but it's just it's really just getting away with the guys and the camaraderie. You hear that all the time, right, on guys' podcasts about their hunting camps, or you get together. That's really what it's about, and a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that, and I'm very thankful and grateful that I get to do that. 'Cause not everybody does. Not everybody does.
Nope.
So the holiday hunt, we didn't go quite as hard, but that was good. We did have a good, fruitful hunt. We did as good as we did last year, and I kind of took over the radio there. I apologize to everybody for that, but
you got a new reputation now here, radio Bill.
Yeah, I took over for Radio Rob, right?
Yeah.
Hey, somebody's got to coordinate this stuff, and it's just like that's what I did for a living, so I just can't help it. I jump in and
fine. Over communicate. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Haters are gonna hate.
That's right. That's right.
How many deer they get? They only got 3 deer, so
Yeah.
we got 6, they got 3. I'd say we did just fine.
Oh my God. Yeah, it was funny when I heard we had 4 down, and I'm like, "Do you need help back there?" It was like, "Yeah, we'll get it." And I'm like, "Well, how many guys do you have?" He's like, 4. I'm like, we got to get it. It's like
4 deer out with 4 guys. That's a lot of work.
It's like 3.5 miles, everybody carrying one deer plus all their gear. I'm like, So, yeah, that's when I got a little nuts on the radio because calling guys in to help carry. But that was fun. That was a great. I mean, we're not even out there dark till dark, really. It's
No.
It was that's just so much fun, and it's such a gorgeous place,
Yep.
So.
Yep, it's good times.
How about you? So you got some things planned? You mentioned that, as we move into this time of year, we look at our postseason scouting and our habitat. That's what everybody's talking about now on these platforms. But when you were having your meltdown emotionally because you weren't getting your archery deer, and you're like, if I don't get a deer tomorrow, I'm gonna cut my chainsaw. I'm gonna cut all this shit down.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut every freaking tree on this.
Yeah. So I got afterwards. I was thinking about that. I'm like, I always like, I should probably do this. I'm like, you know what? We got to do this. So we're not cutting down every tree on the property, but we did a timber marking Monday and Tuesday, and got that all done. So we got over 100,000 board feet that we're going to put out to bid on Friday. And
nice.
It's going to be a big sale. There'll be I think we have marked just under 600 trees, maybe 575, 580. So, but we're only taking, average number, I think we're looking at 20, 21 inch, So it's some big stuff. We're averaging a lot of board feet, but we're also mixing in some stuff that's, cull stuff, and some of it, if they don't want it, they can leave it there, and we'll do it for firewood, or it can rot down. But damage trees, and so it's a harvest and a thinning, and so if you look at how many trees we marked, at best they'd be a saw log, or they're just firewood. We marked a bunch of them, and so when you average it all down, I mean, I think Corey was thinking we might be as much as 200 board feet average per tree. So. But we're very excited about that. We'll see how the numbers come in. And I told Corey this isn't really about making money. We're not doing this for the money. We're doing this for the habitat,
Yeah.
Because Mike and I talked, and we're getting older. We're in our 60s, and 10 years from now, if we decide to thicken the property up, I mean, then we're going to be in your 70s. I mean, we're going to make good hunting for you boys and the grandkids. But
Right.
I told him, I go, if we want to make good hunting for ourselves for the next 15 years, we should act now, and we're due.
Yeah.
We're due. So we're about 20 years really from the last big harvest. We did a smaller harvest probably 10 years ago. We just took out a couple loads of specific stuff for a buyer that had been lined up for us. And so this is our, it's first cut in 20, which is what we envisioned. It's hard to believe it's here. We did a cut, and we're like, yeah, we'll try another cut in 20 years. And now I'm like, geez, I'm a year past that.
Yeah, it's crazy how time flies. Yeah.
So, but I also feel that it's getting too risky for him and I to be up there dropping trees. And I'd rather, just have it managed by Corey and his team at Future Forest, and let them manage the whole thing. And we'll reap the benefits and work on managing the habitat when that, when they get all done, then we'll come in and do our cleanup. But we already have our roads there. Some of them I put in with a dozer, other ones the other loggers have put in. But so, access is great. He feels the job should bid well, and but it's kind of exciting to be doing our, trying to think, be our second big harvest. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
And so here's the other thing I will say: if marking timber, if you can walk with your forester, wow, what an education! You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I would highly encourage, even if you're not going to log, if you just want to put together a plan or have a forestry management plan, the harvest might not be now, but it might be in 10 years from now. And the cut we did 20 years ago, we took some good stuff, but we also took some stuff that was rough. And I forget the percentage. I think he said we took maybe 40% basswood because the property had been logged, another 20 years prior to that. But we really needed to grow, the hard maple, cherry, oak, red oak, and we have some tulip poplar on there, and we had some butternut, and we didn't mark any of them. We're kind of leaving them, but we have some hickory that's like really, really big, and so we're going to thin out that hickory, like below that brushy spot where you had the portable up there in the middle of the property.
Yeah.
All that those hickory ridges we're cutting the big stuff, but we're also leaving some big stuff. So it'll be nice, because he said you don't want the whole thing a clear cut, you don't want the whole thing overgrown, but to create pockets, which has been our theme, right? To have connected pockets, and the deer seem to love it. It's been very fruitful, and but what we need is more of that, and so the more you have a thick pocket on a knob, and then it's a little more open on the south side of it or in the draw, that's edge, right? And deer love edge. So, we're doing this in a way that we don't just make one big clear cut with an edge around it, but, there's going to be edge throughout the property, everywhere. So I'm excited about it. I really am. And again, it's like, I hope we make some money. It'll pay the taxes. But at the same time, if we don't, I'm not so much worried about that as I am excited about the habitat we're going to create.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an exciting thing to go through on the property, and I remember what changes there were on the property in the years following the last one, and now everything is picking back up again. So, or is open back up again in many places. So it'll be exciting to see that go the other way again.
Do you remember
some of the areas you're going to cut had never, since you've owned the property, have never been cut.
Right. We left them last time.
That's right. So like that's going to change. That's going to change the property wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And Corey said to me when we were walking some of it, he's like, I didn't mark this at all before, did I? I'm like, no, we stayed out of this section. And so, like you say, some of it's going to be a first cut. And so a couple of profound things that jumped out at me was the amount of ice storm damage. I'd be looking at a tree, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to take that. I might leave that one. And he's like, and he'd look up and point at the top, and you'd see where at the top, you could see from the 91. So it's almost 30 years ago. You could see where the top had been broken out of it, and it's all screwed up looking. And he's like, the top part of that tree is not healthy, And it was very, like we were talking, he and I, it's amazing that 30 years later you walk around and it's like we were there, so we remember why it looks like that. But the trees that still had ice storm damage or had heavy ice storm damage, So that was very interesting.
And like when, when's the next time one of those is going to come through and devastate the value of your forest again? So yeah, like you're hitting it at the right time.
Yep.
And you said the market is able and willing right now with new administration coming in for lumber, and so
yeah. He said the buyers are eager. So the other interesting thing I found is I find myself doing this all the time because I've spent my entire life per se on that property. When I go up there to walk, and like it'd be in the winter, and like we'll do a little scouting. I always walked like the same areas. I walked the same way, So going and marking timber with Corey, like I was down on the west edge of that swamp, down by the road, working through all that cobble and up, up along above the pond and on all. We were right down on the knobs, and I'm like, this is where the deer have been all year. It's just covered with deer beds, and pawed up, and they're feeding down there, and you like that lower half. Not even the half, just way down low on the property. They're laying in there like crazy.
What's the common denominator there?
No pressure.
No pressure. We're never down there.
Nobody's ever down there, and that's where all the deer were. It's like it's not that big an area, and if you try to go down there, they have great escape routes. But the point is, especially later in season, right, where their movements become in a very tight circle, if you will, where they're gonna bed where they feed per se. They don't want to be traveling long distances, expending energy they don't need to in the winter. And but man, it's all tore up down there. There's beds everywhere. And Jimmy was I don't know, maybe it was after I was on the Thanksgiving weekend hunt. Jimmy was in that blind over on Fort Naples. Remember that? And he didn't come back and didn't come back and didn't come back, and it was dark. And I call him like, "You all right?" He's like, "Yeah, I just got deer all over coming up from down below me." So. They were there throughout the season. Mike hunted hard for doe. This is a year again where we harvested no does. 0 does out of there.
That's right.
0. And so we did find some on occasion up on top and around. But, Mike still hunts that heavy and for does. But, he's as good a hunter as you're going to find when it comes to sneaking up on something and still hunting. He's like, I would say, like the best I know. And he could not come across a doe. And he's picky, too. He's got to be a good doe, and he's got to know that it's, he's got the good shot and everything. But the important thing is that he was not able to connect. And I think the deer movement died down on it probably, and it is very open. But I will tell you, they're back in there pawing at the food plots. It's all tore up in there, and the tracks are back in there, and they're moving in areas that. That's where I started with this whole conversation. Is that when you go walk your property, like this time of year, you're out in January, walk the entire thing. I think I did several miles Monday. And it was tough. It's up and down these steep knobs and down into these draws, but it paints the picture. And you're like, I'd see stuff. I'm like, I got to remember this, which is the value of the
Well,
winter scouting.
Yeah, well, and shed hunting too, and that's I've done that now a lot, and I totally know what you're saying. That you tend to walk the same paths over and over again. It's just human nature, just nature in general. But I've gotten into when I've gotten more serious about shed hunting, just literally grid searching an area, and I try to cover every square foot of the property, just grid searching. Walking zigzags back and forth every 10, 20 feet.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I've started doing is I'll walk deer trails, and I don't do it over and over again, but I discovered when I was walking in the hardwoods at the farm that there was very distinct deer trails that were traveled historically with whether it be, just you could see the trails, or it was if there's snow, even better because you can see them.
Yep.
But turn your tracker mode on and walk the trail out all the way through the property, and then stop your track, save it, change the color. So on my maps on our property, both in Naples and out home at the farm, I've got my deer trails are all marked brown, solid lines, and then I've got ATV trails and stuff are marked black dotted lines. Just how I do it.
Yeah.
So then you take a step back and look at it, and you can see the travel patterns.
Right.
And you start to put the pieces together where you may never walk any of those places, and you may never want to walk any of those places during deer season, especially. But you plot that stuff out on a map and you see it. Now, okay, so if I got a west wind and it's the rut, and you're looking for cruising bucks, you know that the does move north to south and head from bed to food, but the bucks are cruising going east to west, trying to cut those 4 different deer trails that go north and south.
Right.
And they're just trying to cover around, so they're cutting across. So, it kind of can set you up for where our potential stand locations, more permanent sets or hanging hunts, depending on the wind, to be just downwind of an intersection of a trail, stuff like that. But yeah, walking your property in different ways, it opens your eyes up to really how the deer use it,
right,
and how you can hunt it.
Now, and you got to keep in mind that the way they're using it now might be different than the way they're using it on September 30th, or right. So I mean that, but it's still for the most part,
it depends on the area.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't, but they're not walking different trails. That's the thing, though. They may use it a little bit differently. They might be bedding in different spots, but they're still traveling the same areas.
Yep.
That's what I've seen on farmland. Farmland is maybe a little bit more consistent than hill country and big woods.
Right.
But on the inverse, that I almost I spent all that time on that state land where I've had success down the road from camp, and all that scouting and all that sign and all those trails I marked that I used to find my spot to hunt on opening day of gun season.
It's all winter.
Was all wintertime
deer
trails.
Exactly. I found a spot that, and I never go down that way, but you get on the south side of our property below the main logging road, and there's draws that goes down into a valley that, by where we used to call it the old trapper's cabin, was down the bottom of the valley. And when you come down that, there's a drainage to your left and a drainage to your right as you're facing east, and you're on that finger, very typical of what we would see in PA, right? And from a terrain standpoint at the head of a draw, or a valley cut.
Yeah.
And but you would not believe the deer trail running right down the top of that finger that splits them 2 draws, right, and it goes right down into the bottom. And I was stood there. And I told Corey, I never realized the deer running this much. It's like this is a travel route for them. So I mean, I've been there my whole life, and I'm still I was like, maybe it's stuff I saw before and I forgot, but because I thought to myself, hey, I'm back, I got to make notes on this. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's just, and it doesn't matter whether it's your property with a forest manager that you're walking it, or if you just you hunt public, or you just want to go walk your property. But like you said, walk every square inch. Like walk differently. Just look at it and go, where would I normally go, and go a different way. And it's probably going to be a harder way, especially with our place. You know, it's all like it was a hard day on Monday, but it was worth it, and I learned a ton. You know. So, what do you got going for Habitat? What you mentioned, you had some projects possibly in the wind here.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to continue working on some invasive stuff and trying to take care of honeysuckle and buckthorn. And one thing that we didn't do well the last couple of years, or really our first couple of years of getting serious about doing timber stand work and managing some of the stuff we have, is just not killing the stuff and just cutting it. So it's coming back stronger and angrier than it was.
Okay.
Which, if we would have listened to the John Teeters and the Ben Williams and the different people that we've engaged with, like they told us that and we didn't do it. And now we're, learning from our own mistakes. I mean, it is what it is. But, so Dallas has bought all the concoction mixed up to make the hack and squirt, which, so you go around with a little bottle mixed up, some sort of pesticide, or not pesticide,
herbicide.
It's herbicide. And you just you hit the tree with an axe, whether it be buckthorn or honeysuckle, and scar the outside of the tree, and then you squirt that with this herbicide, and it'll kill the tree when it comes back to life in the spring. Is my understanding.
Yeah, I'd never heard of that. So are you actually cutting a piece off? Are you actually shaving off some of the outer layer of the tree, or
you call it the cambrium layer?
Yeah, the cambrium layer. Yep.
So you just need to open up, expose the wood, and then spray that, and it'll get into the tree and into the bush, and it'll kill it.
Okay.
So that's what we need to more consciously be working on that. But we've kind of gotten a little firewood business going to help us, because we want to cut trees anyway to work on the deer habitat. So the last couple of years have found some consistent buyers that'll buy logs from us, and they do the splitting and cutting. But we're working to try to start finding some customers that'll buy some split hardwoods from us. So that's something we're trying to do, really with the goal to try to start helping out and paying the taxes on the property to take the burden off of my father-in-law and their dad.
Right.
For having the land. But we're working on that, and from some of the invasive discussions, I actually spoke to Corey Figueredo as well about what some of the opportunities would be to have some invasive removal done, and if there was funding available for that to help pay for it. And there's a few different programs out there that he said that would apply to us. One of which is through New York State DEC, or through New York State. I don't know if it's the DEC who funds it. I would assume it is. But that's a program that his company can come out and walk the property and then do the application and actually do the work. So we're going to try to coordinate that with him this winter to get him to come out. Like, we've got a bunch of old pasture area that's got honeysuckle and buckthorn that's just taken over, and then we've got ash that's just either standing dead or dying. That the stuff that's dead and rotting is not going to be any good for firewood. We can cut some of the ash that's that is still alive, try to use some of that, either if there's any value to it in a log. But I've walked around some of these areas that we have that we want to kind of restore a little bit. I mean, it's just standing dead ash. Like, there's nothing, none of them are living.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how just in a couple of years, we had cut this one area, we call it the bushes. We had cut it really hard, 3 winters ago, and it was a lot of the ash was starting to die. There was some that was dying, but there was still a lot of stuff that was alive. So we ended up, cutting that down and skidding those logs, and we sold all that for firewood, which is great, and very, for the most part, kind of hands off. But now just in the last couple of years, the trees that were left in there that we didn't cut, they're just dead. So that ash borer is really, it's killing off. You drive down the road, it's everywhere, just dead ash standing.
Yeah.
So we want to get that ground back into being productive and more not so much controlled by invasives, but have there be some valuable undergrowth started, whether it be trying to get it into, native grasses or, probably some of that, but then also trying to get some trees growing in there again that will be of value down the road. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the stuff we're working on, and all the work that Dallas did last year, I think that it's pretty safe to say that the success that we all had on the farm this year, shooting 2 6-year-old bucks off the property, Norwood, and then that buck Dallas got in muzzleloader, like just great bucks. The kids were with us. Billy was with me on a kill for his first year with me with a doe. Brian got multiple deer with, got Norwood and a couple does with the girls. One doe, I don't know what it was, 1 or 2 does with the girls. But what we're trying to do to have the property hold deer all season and have there be places where we can take the kids to get them into it comfortably and enjoyably. Like, you have to look back at this season and at all the work we're doing over the last few years and just be really happy about the outcome of it, because for Brian and I to go out in that holiday hunt and for me to sit there on one of the last days of the year and have 20 plus deer come out of the woods, our woods and our neighbors' woods, but come out of the woods and come into our food plots, and they're eating the beans and the corn and the brassicas and browse, and there's just, the deer are thriving on our property right now, and we're pulling in deer from other areas. So it's really encouraging. And
it's paying off.
It's a lot of hard work, but that's the part that has become completely obsessive around this whole thing. Is you can see, like, I now have a different respect and appreciation for the work that you and Uncle Mike have done at camp, and Uncle Mike, namely, I mean, that's like his that's his life. Is he loves to go to camp and cut wood, and you can see why it's so addicting, because you see the impact you're making and how it's changing the forest, almost immediately. And you drop that tree when it's 5 degrees out and there's a foot and a half of snow on the ground, and you drop that soft maple tree and let it lay, and you go back out there 2 days later and almost every bud is nipped off, and the deer have been all over the area because it's food for them. And it's like, so I think anyone who's a hunter, and people that listen to this are hunters, like they understand what we're saying. But I think the people that aren't, that might be, consider themselves to be environmentalists or like, nature lovers, but don't hunt and aren't active participants, I just don't think they look at us and they're like, wait, you're some evil murderer that kills deer. But yet you want to go out there, and it makes you feel warm and fuzzy knowing that it's brutal cold out and it's the harshest time of year, and I'm helping them stay alive. Like, it's such an interesting, we're farmers. Like, we joke about being deer farmers, but like, there are animals. Like, we rely on them to be there for us, to put food on the table.
Right. And you want to keep them healthy. And it's so rewarding, as you said, you have this vision, right? Like when you guys 2-3 years ago and you started on this and you had an idea, we're going to do this and clear this area out and we're going to make bedding over here. So you have this vision, but it is so gratifying when you get, 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road and you see it all come together just as you had envisioned it. At least you hope that's the outcome, right? And you guys, this was a very telling year for you guys in that aspect, that you're doing the right things and your work, but also it's not just like you go out there and do work, right? But you have a plan. And I think that's like so important, is to have a plan, work the plan, and then you can watch the plan yield the benefits, right? And, I did a podcast with Cale Hassler, and I had him come out and walk the property really for the purpose of, having material for the podcast and sharing that conversation. And, and I had asked him, like, give me the top 1 or 2 things that I would need to do to make this better deer hunting, this property, in conclusion of our conversation. And he goes, you got to thicken it up. You got to cut some of these trees down, And it's that simple,
Yeah.
right? It's that, and that was 2 years ago. And every year we cut some down, but we're not cutting enough to make, like we improve our pocket, our little patch clear cut, as Corey calls it. Those patches are making a big difference, but this is going to like jump us way forward. So it's I guess that's the other thing I'd highlight is have a plan. And speaking of that, have you guys, like, what do you do for your food plots? Have you in Dallas, like, I guarantee you Dallas's wheels are turning. Yours probably are too, but I don't know if you've come together to put together, I don't know, I guess I'd say like a written plan of what our crop rotations be. This is what we're going to plant. This is how we're attacking it this year. How do you guys do that?
I mean, that's all in Dallas's head. We talk, me, Brian, Dallas, Bob, talk nonstop about, we got to get together some night and, draw this out. And it just, we talk a lot. I mean, we're all so busy.
Right.
There's nothing on paper, but we're all on the same page of what we're trying to achieve. And, Dallas is, what we've done with our food plots over the last, this will be going into our third year of doing all no-till and kind of a regenerative ag approach to things. We really don't have to think too much about what the spring is going to look like because the spring stuff was planted in the fall.
Gotcha.
And we're going to we'll probably overseed some more cereal rye, or whatever he's thinking. I don't know exactly what he's thinking, but that's what I would assume is the deer are pounding the cereal rye. I mean, anything that they can get at that's green growing, that they're after it. So, but we don't have to run out there in May and till the ground up and plant stuff. Like that stuff's all already in the ground and it's growing already, but what hasn't, it'll explode once the spring breaks. And then we've got our stuff that we're going to plant into at the end of May, beginning of June, with our summer release, and everything's a mix now. I mean, for the most part, that's what it is. And then
you don't have the monoculture so much, right?
Right. I mean, we have our corn and beans, and it's just been amazing to see the corn. I mean, they ate the corn. There was corn everywhere around us, hundreds of acres of corn, and they still ate. The corn is gone, and it's been gone for I would say almost a couple months. The food plot corn that we had, and that was and then the beans. The deer are pounding the beans, and they have been for a month and a half. Ever since the weather really got cold and all the crops were off. I mean, they put the feed bag on and they were focused right back on that. But we're seeing this year more than the last few years that they're really enjoying the brassicas quite a bit. And I think that's because maybe they're getting more used to them. Like it's not a new thing. When the first couple of years we were planting that stuff, I think they weren't quite sure what it was or they weren't keying on it. Mm-hmm. And now, we're putting those things in the same places every year. And like the deer are just congregating to those areas to feed.
Nice.
So you're seeing that. But I think we'll continue with the bean and the corn, in its places. But we're really, the mixes and the different things, like that's a huge part of what we're doing. And so yeah, we don't really have a written plan. There's just a lot of, we should we have one? If you listen to podcasts with land managers, they would tell you should have one. But we're constantly ebbing and flowing with what we've got going on. And
right.
I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that we've done and I've been part of with the family there is planting pine trees and planting other trees. And, that's something that every year, we're cutting trees, but we're planting hundreds of trees.
Yeah.
And, we're planting, more desirable hardwoods like oak and, so we can get some more mass crop chestnuts, hickory, things of that. And then, planting at least 100, if not more, spruce trees or pine trees every year. And, now some of those trees that I first planted with them as seedlings, 10, 12 years ago when I first started hanging with Sarah and getting into the family, some of those trees now are 15, 20 feet tall.
Wow.
And like you go out there after we got a couple of those big dumps of snow during deer season and the deer they're bedding in them and behind them. They're using those trees now.
That's their thermal cover.
And they're going to start, those trees will continue to keep growing. and we're going to start to have significant thermal cover in areas that we never had it before. It was just open pasture and goldenrod.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's just a constant evolving effort. And, you know, one of the things that I don't know if we talked about it on here. I think Dallas talked about it back over the summer, and most people probably don't care. But like, we took over a field that was being commercially farmed, that was a small field in, you know, in a farmer's sense, but it's a big piece for us. It was maybe like 5 acres,
Yeah.
but it's on a hill between our hardwoods and the swamp, and the swamp obviously being some good bedding and cover. And now what we're doing with that field is we're going to have the south facing side of that field. We're going to be building that into bedding and letting that regenerate.
Oh, okay.
And then on the north side of that, we're going to have it be food, and we can hunt it from the north and west side of it, so that the majority of our winds are going to be our south, southwest, westerly winds. We can come in downwind and hunt it downwind and have the deer bedding out front of us, or, you know, out in front, not anything downwind.
Right.
So like, that's one of the things we're working a lot at, is trying to develop the habitat with the intention of where would we sit when we hunt it, so that we're not, you know, building habitat and then we can't control where the deer are coming from and we can't hunt it.
Right. No,
So
that's
we're
really
almost thinking like,
smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
pretty cool.
yeah, it's the fun part of the land management piece of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll do more podcasts as we go about the land management piece.
Yeah. I can't believe, I mean, we should have known this is already an hour.
Yeah.
Why don't you hit on quick what your plans are with the HuntWorks for the winter shows?
Yeah, we'll just hit on that and then wrap it up. We're approaching an hour here, and you probably have some of your other work to do. But yeah, so we've got the next week. I can't believe it's here already, but the New York Sportsman's Expo at the Fairgrounds in Syracuse, and that runs January 24th, Friday through Sunday, January 26th. So it opens, I think, at noon on Friday, and then so we'll be there Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday. I'll be helping the guys at HuntWorks. I'll be helping them load up and truck up there on Thursday and get everything set up and kick off and work the show with them. So I hope everybody stops out to see us. We'll have a full array of blinds, hunting blinds, Banks products, Millenniums, the buck huts, which is we always do well on them and have show prices on these things, but we'll have a lot of buck huts with us, and all the Millennium hang-on stands and ladder stands, and also have the crossbows. And I don't know if we typically haven't brought many bows with us, but the crossbows are a little easier to travel with, and so we'll probably have some of those, trail cameras, all sorts of stuff. So and we usually do giveaways too, where you stop in the booth and you enter in for door prizes and whatnot. So I hope folks will stop out and visit us at that show. And if you don't make a connection with us there at the Syracuse show, we'll be in Hamburg in March. So we'll talk more about that as that approaches. But always a big show for us, and we actually move a ton of product there. And it's really it's a good time, and it's a fun show just because it's great to spend 2.5, 3 days talking with people about hunting. It's just it's a lot of fun, and whether or not they buy anything is really irrelevant. It's just nice to meet people, and now having done it like a couple years, you have some of the same people stop back in to see us, so that's always pretty cool too.
Yeah.
You think you'll be able to make it up at all, or?
Only Jesus knows.
Okay. Well, them hard-working sumbitches at the HuntWorks, they'll be there, and they'll be making some great deals, and now is the time to be thinking about what you need, especially from stands and blinds and things of that nature. So put your plans together and stop out and see us for some great deals on some great products.
Yep.
So what do you I should probably wrap up. Anything in closing, Willie?
Nope. We're going to try to be better about getting some episodes out and taking advantage of my windshield time and Dad's schedule being more flexible. So we're going to try to do a better job of this, and we'll keep everyone updated. And if there's anything that anybody wants to get on here and talk about, if you want to be a guest or if you have topics you want covered, let us know. I would like to catch up with some of these guys that, we used to have on all the time that now, like, I think about John and Ben.
I'd like to get Ben on talking about his life now.
I'm going to pretend to not be emotionally upset about it. But like, they were key people on our show, and, then they went off and did their own thing. And like, not once did they ask for us to be on. I'm not offended by that or anything.
It doesn't bother you. It doesn't keep you awake at night, does it?
No, I don't think about it ever. We kind of made them who they are and gave them a platform, and then they went off and now they're profiting from it. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, you should call into Ben's show tonight. It's Wednesday. He'll be on live tonight.
Yeah, I'll be at a Sabres game with my son. So.
Oh, good for you. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey.
All joking aside, I would like to get some of those guys back on and see some of the things that they've learned. And, the space is evolving and the conversations are evolving. And I listen to both of their shows and consistently, and I take a lot from them. And, John has had some very good conversations over the last month on his show that I would really encourage people to listen to on the Maximize Your Hunt. He had one the other day that he had a couple back to back that they had kind of opposing views on the deer herd management and the numbers wise. And I just think it was a really healthy conversation to listen to from both perspectives. One guy with a perspective, both from the South, but you can, take it and apply it to your property.
Sure.
But, is it, like I think about us with Naples, it's like, is it a bad, the question I think we all have to ask ourselves is why, because you listen to this person say that you should shoot more does and have your percentage be X. That's the best thing for your property and your experience. I think those biologists and the people that make those recommendations are more, they're looking at it more at a county or state or regional level.
Yes, exactly.
Rather than your 100-acre piece of property. And it's like, this one guy that John had on one of the more recent episodes, he's like, I want to go out and see deer. And he's like, I don't want to have to hunt 45 days out of the season. He's like, I got young kids, a career, this and that. It's like, I want to go out. And the guy's like, I've hunted 4 times and I've shot 3 mature bucks, then this, wherever he is, whether it was 3 or 2, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's kind of what we want. Like, that was incredible for me to go out and hunt in the end of December on the farm where we've hunted for 3 months straight and sit there and see 20 deer.
Right.
It's like, this is like, I want to take Billy and the kids out and have them see multiple deer in an evening and not be like, oh, well, but we're just waiting for 1 7-year-old buck. It's like, does the kid really give a shit about that? No, they probably want to go out and see deer and get excited about it.
Right. They need that. If you're at that age, if you're going to get them hooked, you have to put them on deer. They got to be able to see some stuff,
Yeah. There's some people out there like Ben and John that are doing some great content. And, we, with the stage of my life and where I'm at, like I can't put the time and energy into this that I was and have those conversations, but those guys have continued to do what they're doing and both are making, Ben now working for Whitetail Properties and, his sole income is around this land management as been the same as John.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you got 2 guys here in New York that are speaking your language. If you're a New York hunter, even if you're in neighboring states, we're in the same environment. Like I can't say enough good things about those 2 guys. And if people are looking for someone to take guidance from or get content from, John Teeter and Ben Williams are that. And for that glowing review, I expect a phone call very shortly to be on their shows. Anyway.
Oh my
All
God!
Right, I gotta go.
I
gotta go sling a bus.
All right, sounds good. In the meantime, we'll keep feeding them.
Hey,
Later.